Magandang gabi mga kaibigan. Nandito tayo sa Build Bisaya TV News Channel at ating himay-himayin ang naging 2020 Sona kanina ni Pangulong Rodrigo Duterte na kung saan ito ay nagbigay siya ng patutsada sa ABS-CBN bilang isa umano sa pinamumunuan ng isang oligarkiya. Ganun din na bumanat siya kay Senador Drilon, ang pinuno ng minority group sa Senado na di umano ay pumuprotekta sa oligarkiya. Ayun din na sinabi ni Pangulong Duterte na kaiga-igaya yung isinagawa raw na mga gawain
on the part of the House of Representatives, the joint session is called to order.
Para mapanatiling maayos.
May we direct the Secretary General of the House of Representatives to announce the arrival of President Rodrigo Roa Duterte.
Ladies and gentlemen, the President of the Republic of the Philippines, Rodrigo Roa Duterte.
Please rise for the nation's prayer.
Makapangyarihang Allah,
Makapangyarihang Ama,
Makapangyarihang Ama,
Makapangyarihang Ama,
may gawa ng langit at lupa, bagamat kayo ang kataas-taas ng hari, kayo naman ang aming Diyos, na lubusang mahabagin, at ang inyong kapaitan ay walang hanggan.
buong pagpapakumbaba kaming lumalapit at humihingi ng inyong kapatawaran sa aming mga pagkakasala sa isa't isa, sa aming pagwawalang bahala, sa kalikasan at sa iba pa ninyong mga nilikha.
Hilumin ninyo kami, ang aming mga karagatan at mga kagubatan, marapatin ng muling maging daliwan ng inyong mga biyaya.
sapagkat kayo ay patuloy na namamayani sa lahat, maging sa salot na aming kinatatakutan.
tulungan ninyo kami na mahanap ang lunas sa laganap ng pagdurusa. Mangusap sa bawat puso namin, muling ipadama sa amin ang inyong pag-aadya.
Patatagin ninyo ang mga kumakalinga sa mga may sakit, ang mga patuloy na nangangailangan sa amin, gantipalaan at ang bayan sa inyong pagmamahal, hinihiling ang aming kaligtasan. Siya nawa.
Please remain standing for the singing of the Philippine National Anthem.
Kayang makinig para sa silanganan, hanap ng puso sa dibdib mo'y buhay.
Lupang hinirang, tuwing ka nang magiting sa mandulubling.
Di ka pasisiin sa dagat at bundok, sa simoy at sa langit ng bundok. May dilagang tula at awit sa pagdaya minamahal.
Ang kisat ng watawat mo'y tagumpay na nagniningning. Ang bituin at araw niyang kalan, pag may di magdidilim.
Lupa na ay nagmamahal, ating pagsikat ay
Langit sa piling mo, ang ligaya ng pagmamahal, ang tunay na dahil sa'yo.
Ladies and gentlemen, honorable members of Congress, the President of the Republic of the Philippines, Rodrigo Roa Duterte.
kindly. Senate President Vicente Soto III and the honorable members of the Senate, House Speaker Alan Peter Cayetano and the honorable members of the House of Representatives, Vice President Maria Leonor Robredo, former Presidents Joseph Ejercito Estrada and Gloria Macapagal Arroyo, Chief Justice Diosdado Peralta and the Justices of the Supreme Court, His Excellency Munter Mahfoud Salim Almantre, and the esteemed members of the Diplomatic Corps, Executive Secretary Salvador Mindaldia, and the members of the Cabinet, mga mahal kong kababayan. We live in a troubled time. A dream of prosperity for our country was suddenly snapped by a pandemic virulent virus. No nation was spared. Neither rich nor poor were exempt from the onslaught of this deadly disease. But let us not despair. The vaccine is around the corner. Sooner and not later, the virus that gobbled up thousands of lives will itself be laid to rest. In the meantime, let us express the nation's gratitude to those who courageously and willingly put their lives on the line to serve the people and country. We share the griefs of their families, and no amount of tears can compensate their great losses. My countrymen, it is sad that while government focuses its attention resources to battle the coronavirus, there are those who take advantage of a preoccupied government. One of them is Senator Frank Dillon. In an interview, he arrogantly mentioned, among others, that oligarchs need not be rich. Then he linked the anti-dynasty system with oligarchy, and the topic was my daughter and son. This happened after the Committee of Franchise voted 70-11 to deny the grant of franchise to ABS-CBN. Obviously, he was defending the Lopezes, that they are not oligarchs. Great wealth enables economic elites and corporations to influence public policy to their advantage. Media is a powerful tool in the hands of oligarchs like the Lopezes, who use their media outlets in their battles with political figures. I am a casualty of the Lopezes during the 2016 election. The dealers and purveyors of illegal drugs, hiding in the shadow of COVID-19, have stepped up their activities. The amount of shabu valued at millions of pesos seized during police operations speak volumes of the enormity and the weight of the problem that we bear. The corrupt, the grafters, and the influence peddlers also take advantage of their fear and confusion that coronavirus generates the financial and material assistance of government to the unemployed, the sick, and the destitute, running into billions of pesos, are not spared from corruption and ineptitude. Even the donations for well-meaning private persons are skimmed before reaching their intended beneficiaries. It is like snatching food from the mouths of the babes. The profiteers, overpricers, and the corrupt felons must be laughing while they stash their dirty monies, but not for long. They cannot outrun the long arm of the law. In this regards, the words of former President Ramon Magsaysay ring fresh and relevant today as the day they were said decades ago. He said, "We need men of integrity and faith like Rizal and Del Pilar, men of action like Bonifacio, men of inflexible patriotism like Mabini. We need their zeal, their self-reliance, and their capacity to work, their devotion to service, and their ability to lose themselves in the common cause of building a nation. If we allow greed and self-interest and ambition to rule us, then, as stated by one prominent physician, we will be left with nothing better than the lesser evil instead of the greater good." In my inaugural address 4 years ago, I said that no leader can succeed at anything of national importance without significance unless he has the cooperation and support of the people he is tasked to lead and sworn to serve. The efforts and resources which we poured out produced the momentum needed to bring our country closer to our goals. Suffice it to say, we made significant strides over time. Over 4.3 million poor families benefited from the Pantawid Pamilya. Over 92.2 million beneficiaries received subsidies under the Unconditional Cash Transfer Program. We also made available tertiary education and universal health care. Public utility drivers were given assistance to the Pantawid Pasada program. There are complaints that some drivers did not receive any assistance at all. I have directed the SWD and DILG to look into this. I welcome the passage of the law postponing the barangay and sangguniang kabataan elections. The postponement saved much-needed government funds and ensured the implementation of projects under the current barangay officials. In the hindsight, it also saved us from holding the polls while we dealt and continued to deal with the pandemic. The Malasakit Centers Act has proven to be a great help to our less fortunate citizens needing medical services through one-stop platform in government hospitals. We commend the initiative and work of Senator Bongo in this regard, as well as other significant pieces of legislation as of today. There are 75 Malasakit centers serving Filipinos all over the country. These centers will be of great help in ensuring that our people remain healthy and resilient during these challenging times. The Salary and Standardization Law of 2019 increases the salaries of civilian government workers. I hope that this law will inspire our government workers to perform better and encourage young, brilliant citizens to join public service. I appreciate the law of establishing the National Academy of Sports. We can now give our deserving student athletes the training and the support they need to excel in their chosen field of endeavors. With the commitment of key members of Congress, the Executive Department, the FISGOC, or the Philippine Sports Commission, and the Philippine Olympic Committee, we're bound together with one vision to host the 30th Southeast Asian Games. Our athletes prevailed. More than that, we fostered pride, patriotism, genuine sportsmanship, and camaraderie in our South Asian brothers and sisters. Indeed, we won as one. To our business community and the general public, we assure you that the landmark ease of doing business and efficient government service delivery act has been gaining momentum. We are closer to eliminating over-regulation in government services. Frontline processes, including consular services, processing of building and business permits, and the services of overseas Filipinos and seafarers were streamlined. Passports and driver's license validity were lengthened to ease the burden of the public. We received a BBB plus credit rating despite ASEAN credit rating downgrades and negative outlook revisions in the worldwide. The Japan Credit Rating Agency upgraded us from BBB plus to A minus last month. Meanwhile, Moody's has affirmed and maintained the country's ratings at BB2, Baa2 rather. To understand, because of the light, I have mine eyesight is not as good as new. Our fiscal position is strong, our economic fiscal management prudent, and our banking system robust. We are in a better position to weather the crisis caused by COVID-19 global pandemic. We have accomplished significant infrastructure projects under the Build program. I will not dwell lengthily on the nitty-gritty of our infrastructure accomplishments. Now, lest I bore you. Instead, we will release a comprehensive written report of our collective milestones and the details of accomplishments that remind us that perseverance, patience, determination will help us move forward even in the most difficult times. We issued last year the Executive Order number 100, establishing the Diversity and Inclusion Program as national program of the government. We want to end discrimination of persons on the basis of age, disability, ethnicities, sexual orientation, and gender identity and expression, and other character traits. My administration always believed that freedom from illegal drugs, terrorism, corruption, and criminality is itself a human right violation. Part of our efforts to uphold human rights is protection of the rights of children and the right against discrimination. Early last year, I signed Executive Order Number 92, creating the National Council Against Child Labor. Government efforts to protect the rights of children will be amplified to prevent, reduce, and eliminate any form of child labor. Our achievements along this line will have been extolled by an overwhelming number of fellow member states in the UN Human Rights Council during its recently held 44th session last June. Rest assured that we will not dodge our obligation to fight for human rights. My countrymen, there are lessons to be learned from the coronavirus pandemic. It jolted us to realize that gains made after spending so much planning, effort, cost, and time could diminish considerably and quickly for reasons beyond one's anticipation. That it is much easier to destroy than build. That in a crisis of national proportion that affects every aspect of human life, government needs to have the support and cooperation of the people if it is to succeed in battling the cause of that crisis. That there are people who ask for compassion but show none themselves. That life, after all, is fickle, like the weather. The gains we achieved for the first 3.5 years were put to a test when the pandemic suddenly struck the global community. While I am aware that the road towards a comfortable life would all be far easy if the pandemic had not occurred, and around the rest of the world we suffered. The global scale and socio-economic impact of COVID-19 pandemic has been unprecedented. Yet, in the throes of its global health emergency, we have been able to withstand the headwinds generated by this coronavirus. In this regard, I would like to express my gratitude to all those who made possible the steady supply of food, water, basic utilities of our households. And the provisions of basic social services and financial assistance to our people. Our profound gratitude goes to everyone who helped keep our country's food supply chain running. The valiant soldiers, policemen, and security guards who kept peace and order in our community. the dedicated personnel who kept our essential establishment operational. You showed us kindness and selflessness. You gave us strength. You risked your own lives to serve the greater good in keeping the Filipino spirit of bayanihan. I also thank the men and women of the Interagency Task Force on Emerging Infectious Diseases and the National Task Force Against COVID-19 for all the countless hours it spent to keep the pandemic in check and for all the efforts it made to ensure the safety of our people. Let me also recognize the efforts of the local government units that step up and initiated their own response measures to contain effects of COVID-19 and its impact to their constituents have been impact to its constituents. The shadow says it's a period there. I know exactly the difficulties you are undergoing. I pray that the officials of each LGU in our country, from the barangay to the autonomous regions, would set aside partisan politics and selfish interests to do what is right and good for all. Likewise, I likewise issued Executive Order Number 104, which imposed ceilings on retail prices of at least 133 drugs and medicines and directed a continuous review of the retail prices of others. This proved to be providential now that we are facing a pandemic. To everyone who helped us in this time of great need, maraming salamat po. Let me say that the strength of a nation rests in the hands of the people acting as one with government. In the pursuit of common goals and objectives, when the pandemic struck, I decided to prioritize life over other considerations according to experts. The intervention that the government had put in place prevented as much as 1.3 to 3.5 million infections. To me, even if the numbers were much lower, it would still be and would have been worth the sacrifice we made. Buhay muna bago lahat. We initially encountered difficulties ramping up our testing capacity. We now have 93 accredited testing laboratories nationwide, and we are aiming to conduct 1.4 million tests by end of July and ensure a quick turnaround time of 48 to 72 hours. Under the Social Amelioration Program, we allotted 2.5 billion or to 2.5 billion for poor and low-income households who were affected during this pandemic, who thrive on a no work, no pay arrangement. Admittedly, our implementation of the Social Amelioration Program was not perfect, and some opportunists turned crisis into opportunity. We will catch up with you sooner than you think. We came up with the COVID-19 Adjustment Measures Program, extended financial assistance to over 650,000 affected individuals in the formal sector, 110 OFWs abroad, and almost 83,000 repatriated OFWs were also provided temporary wage employment to displace marginal workers through the Tupad project. Our indigent senior citizens were also provided with a stipend for the rest of the semester of the year current year. This health emergency stretched government's resources to its limits. In response to the Office of the President, worked closely with Congress for the quick passage of the Bayanihan to Heal as One Act. May I again reiterate my thanks to you, the men and women of Congress, for the effort you invested in passing that law. I hope that we can get some or the same treatment of clarity, purpose, and the fastness to support the passage of the Bayanihan Recover to Act as One, which is supplement funds for recovery and response against the impact of COVID-19 pandemic. We must facilitate the country's economic recovery. I call on Congress to fast-track the passage of the proposed measure, such as the Corporate Recovery and Tax Incentives Enterprises or CREATE Act. This immediately cuts the corporate income levy from the current 30 to 25% and give government flexibility to grant a combination of fiscal and non-fiscal incentives, among others. The Financial Institutions Strategic Transfer, or First Act, will set up mechanisms allowing banks and other financial institutions to dispose of and transfer non-performing assets and loans to asset management companies similar to the special purpose vehicles. Our economic managers have seen infrastructure investment as an effective tool to help spur high growth, attract investments, create jobs, and achieve financial inclusion for all Filipinos. The DBP has resumed the construction of the North Luzon Expressway Harbor Link, the NLEX-SLEX Connector, the Cavite-Laguna Expressway, the Metro Manila Skyway Stage 3, the R1 Bridge Project, the Tarlac-Pangasinan-La Union Expressway Project, and the Subic-Freeport Expressway Project, to name a few. To realize the maximum benefit from the country's investments, the infrastructure projects under the Build, Build, Build program, which are labor and capital intensive, are not mere springboard for the country's swift recovery pandemic. They are economic benefits to be distributed to all corners of the country and push sustainable stability in the urban centers, particularly Manila. The TESTA launched online mode of livelihood and skills training. There are 71 free online training to help upskill trainees for the right opportunities. I ask TESDA to come up with special training programs to retool our OFWs so they can find employment opportunities here and at home. I am also calling on the CHED for scholarship programs for the qualified dependents of our OFW. I direct the Department of Agriculture and DTI to come up with the agribusiness and entrepreneurship projects to help displaced OFWs rebuild their livelihood. Further, I ask the Land Bank and other government financial institutions to continue providing low-interest loans to our OFW. Sa mga kababayan ko na naghihirap sa ibang bansa, nandito na ang inyong gobyerno para matulungan kayo at inyong mga pamilya, lalo na sa panahong ito. The government will intensify its efforts to help businesses, especially micro, small, and medium enterprises, or MSMEs, by providing responsive government assistance and services capitalization and business operation support as we adapt to the next normal. Nananawagan po ako sa ating mga lessors. Nananawagan po ako sa ating mga lessors. Malasakit at bayanihan po ang sana ang pairalin natin ngayon. This is not the time to drive away laces. During normal times, they were the primary source of your income stream. Now, it's time to be fair and compassionate. Come up with an amenable arrangement with your tenants. Huwag po natin silang pagtabuyan, tanggalin ang tubig, kuryente at bubong. Commercial establishments are requested to give grace periods to allow deferment of payments, especially for MSMEs that were forced to close down during the quarantine period. Let us help them recover. We pump prime the recovery and rehabilitation of the MSMEs. The DTI to the Small Business Corporation set up the Philippine 1 billion COVID assistance to restart enterprises or CARES program to provide zero-interest loans for MSMEs affected by the pandemic as of July 10, 2020. Over 2,600 loans applications worth more than 182.5 million have been approved. We are optimistic that this initiative will help our MSMEs stabilize and recover from their losses. I also enjoin the Bangko Sentral ng Pilipinas and the banks operating in the country to provide regulatory relief for our MSMEs and allow loan payment extension without incurring penalties and charges. We need your help to prevent the collapse of companies saddled with accumulated amortization and payables caused by closure of their businesses at the height of the strict quarantine periods. As we embark on this effort towards inclusive recovery, we should acknowledge that all forms of government support will go to naught if the new MSMEs do not thrive because of lack of consumer support. Ito ang panahon para suportahan natin ang ating mga kababayan na nagninegosyo at gumawa ng mga produktong sariling atin. In the same manner, in tourism and recreation industries, which are among the hardest hit by the pandemic, count on our full support while we slowly try to put the fun back in your local travels. The national government agencies and LGUs must harmonize their policies to boost tourism, ensuring everyone's well-being. We enjoin our people to help boost the economy by traveling locally. Local na lang. Once the necessary system are in place. The DOST offers its enterprise technology upgrading program to enable businesses to access training that will help them transition to online and contactless operation. Now more than ever, we need to protect our consumers. I direct the Department of Trade and Industry to ensure the empowerment of Filipinos on consumer rights and coordinate strategies between public and private organizations in building a fair, safe, resilient, and sustainable economy. There are welcome developments for commerce and industry, but major economic activities take place in borderless environment with the meager regulatory controls. They expose consumers to various risks related to security, data, privacy, and misrepresentation. We must patrol the country's cyberspace and enforce online consumer and data protection and privacy laws. We must run after online scammers and those undermining the people's trust on the online transactions. We must continue to protect Filipinos in the normal and remind the world that we are responsible stewards of data. I am committed to protect both physical and digital lives of our law-abiding countrymen. The national government shall lead the way in our transition to online systems. I reiterate my call for all government instrumentalities to implement systems that shall make physical queuing a thing of the past. Panahon na para mawala na ang pila para mapagsilbihan ang gobyerno ng walang kahirapan para sa tao. The DILG, DBM, and the ARTA, along with all agencies and instrumentalities of government, are hereby directed to make full possible services available online. We need to adjust and adapt a paperless type of business and work performance. We need e-governance our people with the services they need and the comfort of their homes in the workplaces. It will enable us bureaucracy to better transition into the new normal and cut and minimize red tape. Until the COVID-19 vaccine is available, I will not allow the traditional face-to-face teaching or learning unless the risk of exposure to the sickness are eliminated. I cannot and will not put to rest the health and lives of our students and teachers. About 2 weeks ago, I seem to have said that I would allow the face-to-face classes to resume. But we were talking actually of January, because my thinking is that by September, we would have the vaccine. How to get it from the producers or from other governments is really something which we have to deal with, because everyone, it's a global need, and everyone will go for it. But let me just mention it in passing that about 4 days ago, I made a plea to President Xi Jinping that if they have the vaccine, can they allow us to be one of the first, or if it's needed, if we have to buy it, that we will be granted credit so that we can normalize as fast as possible. Life that is lost is lost forever. Courses that are not substantial can be supplemented. Education that is delayed can be recovered. We must implement online learning, modular learning, and TV and radio-based broadcasts, which students coming from different backgrounds can avail. DepEd will provide the printed modules for those who cannot afford online learning. In support of the Learning Continuity Program, through blended learning, we plan to increase the number of schools with ICT equipment in the coming months. The DepEd and the DITC are building up the public education network or PEN that will connect all public schools and DepEd offices nationwide. We will prioritize the connection of all last-mile schools and those with no electricity supply can have it via satellite and energized via solar panels. By 2022, before I step down, the PEN shall be realized. I'm referring to the program. I will do it. TV frequencies reverted back to government for whatever cause or reason shall not be used exclusively to the exclusion of other persons or other dummies to cope up with the demand of the next normal. This will be used to provide uninterrupted quality education to our children in our shift to e-learning. I am directing Secretary Guevara, Secretary De La Peña, and Secretary Onasan, in collaboration with Secretary Briones and Secretary Abisado, together with Secretary Dominguez, to come up with an integrated program and implementation mechanism to ensure that these TV frequencies are fully utilized by government through the facilities of the PTV4 for the utmost benefit of the Filipino people. Let me just allow me to segue a little bit. For the remaining 2 years of my term, all that is good that belongs to government, whether it be the airwaves, whether it be the lines, or whatever that is good for the people, will belong to the government, and it should be government who should be given the first option to utilize them. Ang sobra kanila. I call on our communication companies to improve their services lest we be forced to take drastic steps to address the less than deal service that the public is getting from you. Alam mo, sisingit na lang ako dito. I am sometimes you are government pictured to be weak and incompetent because we cannot really force our mandate. Alam mo itong nagbibigay ng mga public services, you better improve. Huwag naman ninyo kaming pahintayin 10 taon bago kami makakamit ng mga services that the other countries are enjoying. If it's just a question of added capitalization or the infusion of money, go and look for it. Maghanap kayo because if you are not ready to improve, I might just as well close all of you and we revert back to the line telephone. At kukunin ko yan, i-expropriate ko sa gobyerno. Alam mo itong, I'll be straight, smart, pati itong globe, ilang taon na ito? At ang sagot palagi sa akin, the party cannot be reached. Saan pala pumunta yung yawa na yun? Kung gano'n lang naman ibigay ninyo sa amin, we are a republic, a sovereign country. Bear that in mind because the patience of the Filipino people is reaching its limit. At I will be the one to articulate the anger of the Filipino people. And you might not want what I intend to do with you. Kindly improve the services before December. I want to call Jesus Christ to Bethlehem. Better have that line cleared. Alam sa totoo ng adre na po, ano ako sa inyo. I have been a citizen of this country and parang nilalaro lang ninyong, kayong may pera. Puta. May pera kayo, negosyo kayo. Wala kayong pera, putang, umalis kayo dito. You give us half deals, half cook, transactions, lousy service. Tapos ang tao nagbabayad. Tell us now if you cannot really improve on it, because I will work by December. I have 2 years. The next 2 years will be spent improving the telecommunications of this country. Without you, I will find a way. I will talk to Congress and find a way how to do it. Last year, I said that distributing economic business activities is imperative to our country's sustained and equitable growth. Today, I reiterate that statement. I issued Administrative Order Number 18, directing concerned agencies to strengthen the development of special economic zones in areas outside Metro Manila. I also issued Executive Order Number 114 to institutionalize the Balik Probinsya Bagong Pag-asa program. This consolidates and refocuses existing economic and social welfare programs, activities, and projects toward the countryside. It is also an international agency council headed by Executive Secretary Salvador Medaldia, which will create a framework for the effective implementation of the project. Kung hindi ninyo ako naiintindihan sa sinabasa ko, mas lalo ako. In 2021, we aim to increase access to healthcare services by continuously hiring and deploying more than 20,000 health professionals. This will augment health workforce in LGUs, particularly in isolated and disadvantaged areas. We will implement projects to establish and improve barangay health stations, rural health units, and other healthcare facilities. And we will need to address internal security. We are pursuing a whole-of-the-nation approach to bring peace and order, development in the countryside. We need to provide intervention and implement the Barangay Development Program. This will provide cleared and threatened communities. This refers to a program where the armed forces would play a vital role in the one nation approach. This is what it's meant by this. And that every agency of the government, including the armed forces of the Philippines, should participate. And I am aware of the skirmishes and the assassination of our soldiers. And I said, correct this so that we can proceed with the barangay implementation as fast as possible. We have made significant strides in the past 4 years, but we need the support of local government leaders. We need your help to implement the Barangay Development Program. Certain sectors expressed concern when I declared martial law in Mindanao and its extension 3 times. But 2019 ended without my office requesting any further extension. Martial law in Mindanao ended without abuses by the civilian sector, by the police, by the military. It ended because this time I know that they know how to love the country. I thank Congress for the support to these administration programs. Congress has been very productive, but much more remains to be done. You know, actually, my speech, if we followed it carefully, it's all a plea to Congress to do this, to do that, to make a law or craft a whatever. And this one, I strongly urge Congress to pass a law establishing the Department of Overseas Filipinos, solely on addressing the concerns of Filipinos abroad and their families. I reiterate this swift passage before this. Kawawa kasi itong ating mga overseas. If it's only an office there in the Labor Department, they are overworked or for whatever reason, their needs, their pleas are not really attended to with dispatch and with care. OFW, pati itong ano ngayon, ito yung sinabi ko kanina, I will go for it. We will need it to help them. I reiterate the swift passage of a law reviving the death penalty by lethal injection for crimes specified under the Comprehensive Dangerous Act of 2002. I did not hear so much clapping, so I presume that they are not interested. Wala kang... Someday I'll tell you the story of what happened to the Philippines. Hindi ngayon. But when sabihin ko sa inyo ang totoo, bakit nagaganito yung druga ng Pilipinas? Why the drug syndicates continue to operate just like the countries of Colombia, Mexico, and it is being played inside the national penitentiaries. Para tayong talagang binababoy tayo. Sabihin ko sa inyo. But this is not a time for storytelling. Sona kasi ito. So, dito na. This law will not only help us deter criminality, but also save our children from the dangers posed by the illegal and dangerous drugs. May I be allowed with the indulgence of the body? Itong bakit talaga ako galit sa droga. Let us make this a semi-formal speech. Alam mo kasi, 5 pamilya members, o 6 or 7, pagka bumagsak yung tatay to drugs, the family crumbles. There's no more home to. Druga, and if he's receiving his salary, nagtatrabaho sa pantalan, 300 a day. Tapos ang shabu is sold at 2. He has about 100 to bring home. Kaya pagka gano'n, nag-aaway-aaway na. Ang mga bata hindi nakapag-aral, ang iba ligaw na mga babae into early prostitution, kung ano-ano nangyari. Hindi lang alam nitong mga na this is happening all over the country every day. And what is really very tragic is this. When the family starts to crumble, this the more family home. And invariably, the wife would look for another husband would look for a job, usually, easily, doon sa abroad. At yung asawa, aalis, yung lalaki na sa droga, yung mga anak iniiwan sa kapitbahay, sa kapatid. And the ferocity of the loss of the Filipino family home has been destroyed. Kaya kung anong mangyari nito, the wife works in the Middle East. I am not zeroing on any particular country, mind you. But alam naman, there are tribes in the Middle East which would allow rape as part of the territory of being a house help. Kasama yan. Kasama talaga yan. So yan ang mahirap dyan. You have a wife there being crucified, being used, magpadala ng pera, tapos ang mga anak, asan nasa Cebu na rin. Kasi these are the guys that the Cebu people would really, stick by them until it crumbles, the resistance. And then you have plenty of this all over the country. Nila alam. Yung sinasabi nila ng misery sa itong human rights, plus 10 yan. Not to count the victims of crimes perpetrated by people addicted to Cebu. That is the reason why I'm so vicious in my galit talaga ako. Kasi nilalaroan tayo. Well, I don't know. Any other president might, pero ako ayaw kong lalaroan ng Pilipino. Do not do it in my country because I will really kill you. That is a commitment. Owning safe, decent, and affordable housing is every Filipino's dream. But the housing market remains inaccessible to most of our countrymen. I renew my call for Congress to pass the National Housing Development Bill and the Rental Housing Subsidy Bill. These will enable all Filipinos, regardless of social status, to live in decent homes where their families can lead meaningful lives. I also call on Congress to amend Republic Act number 10912 for the Continuing Professional Development Act of 2016. In this time of great pandemic and forthcoming reconstruction, requiring professionals to undergo seminars is burdensome and not realistic. This must end. Ito pang isa. May mga profession. Singit ko na lang lahat to tell this is to inform the nation. May mga profession na they would require, I think it's the nicest, they would require them to come to Manila to retrain and for another round of expenses. Itong mga seminar na ito, dapat mahinto. I don't know in other provinces, but during my time itong sa barangay expeditions ng mga opisyal, hininto ko rin yan. And which reminds me, I will act on this also in due time. We hail our health professionals as heroes. Now is the time to pass the Advanced Nursing Education Act and the law instituting the Medical Reserve Corps. COVID-19 will not only be the last pandemic. We need to create National Disease Prevention Management Authority to better respond to future outbreaks. We count on Congress to full support. You can just let it remain for a while in the Department of Health kung wala pang pera, but you have to expand the services. It would also entail a little bit of money, but not really as much as expensive when you set up a department. In the long term, we are looking into the creation of the National Disease Prevention and Management Authority to better prepare for the pandemics, protect lives, and allow development to proceed even in the worst of times. We are counting on the full support of Congress for this critical, important endeavor. I don't know, but I leave it to Congress to really. It's another department. There seems that it could be a multi-layer, redundant thing between the health and the proposed department. I call on Congress to prioritize the passage of a law for the unified system of separation, retirement, and pension, and of the military and uniformed personnel, without, however, diminishing the benefits that our uniformed personnel are entitled to under existing laws. There is a need to adjust the pension system, which will be applicable only to the newly hired uniformed personnel, so as not to cause a ballooning effect against the budget of the military in the years to come, and yet maintain the pension benefits those already in service under the present law. This issue needs a solution now. Umpisa natin ngayon para hindi na maging problema sa sunod na mga taon. I want to, one of the, this is not politicking, I am not running, I cannot run anymore. Yung dinoble ko yung sweldo ng police pati army, it was really a clarion call para for them also to have a decent life and that they're able to get the things which ordinarily cannot be reached by any government employee. Ang akin doon is yung corruption. That maybe it might be a vain attempt, but maybe dagdagan ng sweldo para it would be a hedge against corruption. We must also modernize the Bureau of Fire Protection and the Bureau of Immigration with urgency. Alam mo, sa Davao, and if you go there, I can show you. one of the serviceable trucks, fire trucks that we have in the city of Davao. Of course, ang city meron ng sarili, aside from the Bureau of Fire, which is really national. Meron yung Bureau of Fire, would you believe it, serviceable still. Ang pangalan ng truck is Studebaker. Ang katawan, ang talagang matatag ang katawan. Kaya ang makina isuso. Pero okay pa rin. It can put out. But, totoo. This is how this Bureau of Fire issue medyo na overlook natin ng matagal. I emphasize the creation of the Department of Disaster Resilience and our people's safety, which cannot be delegated to any council or commission. Equally important is the establishment of evacuation center in every city, province, municipality throughout the country. We must act before another major disaster shakes into action. Problem is disaster and even a fire. This cannot be made a study for projection when the earthquake would suddenly come and make a big crack there. Hindi natin alam talaga. Ang ibig kong sabihin, this will require more than just one brainwork kung paano talaga itong how to prevent or avoid disaster. It would be, by the way, just before starting, I was tempted to say it, pero baka magtindigan kayo. It will be all right for me if Bongo will just stay. Wala akong problema. Sabi ko na this piece of speech of mine would be one of the longest sonas that I will deliver. Nakita ko yung page pagbigay sa akin. Yung ibang input akin. Pati yung iba lahat. Ang nangyari po, binalik ko sa kanila. Make it short. Pagbalik sa akin, mas makapal na. Nandyan na ngayon. Ito na ngayon. The responsible extraction and equitable distribution of natural resources remain among my non-negotiables. I reiterate the need for the passage of the National Land Use Act, which has been pending for decades. Pakisilip lang ho ninyo yan. For the rest of my term, I hope to see concerted efforts in protecting the environment. The rehabilitation of Boracay Island showcased our resolve to safeguard the environment. Boracay is doing well because of its scenery. If it's only a coconut and a black sand, white sand and water, wala yan. Pero you add the visitors there, then it becomes a very tempting destination. We have seen remarkable emergence of the island back to its former glory. I want this sustained. I ask Congress to enact a law creating, importante ito, the Boracay Island Authority, or BIDA. We need it. I cannot stress enough the importance of agriculture. The growth of our economy depends on a robust agricultural sector. We must utilize the coconut levy for the welfare of our coconut farmers and the development of our coconut industry. I urge everybody, both of the executive department pati ito, that ito yung pera na nakuha doon sa sequester, and itong perang malaking ito, gagamitin ito for the welfare of the farmers. The problem is, we can no longer trace who are the farmers of yesterday. Marcos is a distant star. We do not know. Ako alam ko because we had a little piece also that was covered by the land reform. Hindi na natin malaman kung sino ang may-ari. So I think Congress should look again and try to sort out how best the money can be utilized. I will not make any suggestion, but I leave it to Congress to decide what to do with it. I once again urge both houses of Congress to pass a version of the bill establishing the Coconut Farmers Trust Fund. Tulungan natin ang ating mga magsasaka pagka hindi mawawala yung pera, bilyon yan. Diyos ko po. Well, anyway, we have learned so many lessons along the way. I am also requesting Congress to pass the Rural, Agricultural, and Fisheries Development Financing System Act. We aim to provide adequate, accessible, and affordable food for every Filipino through the Plant program. After the build, I think this is easier to achieve. A few good men, few good regional directors, DAR, and dedicated workers down below could make this thing a success. Mas madali ito kaysa build. Ito plant lang eh. It is more of how you try to convince the farmers to cooperate government for their benefit. This 66 billion agricultural stimulus package will help the agricultural and fisheries sector recover. I hope so. We need to build trust and confidence in online transactions, stronger protection on online consumers, and enabling measures for online business needed through the enactment of an Internet Transaction Act. This is very good. I thus direct the Department of Trade and Industry and other relevant agencies to work on it closely with Congress, ensuring that the provisions of the proposed bill are responsive to the needs of the consumers while promoting the growth of e-commerce in the country. If you are tired of clapping, you just say so I can make a shortcut. Pabilisan lang. On the path of better governance, we travel with other partners, both old and new, have helped bolstering the antiquated public health system for bringing home our laid of Filipinos overseas for filling in supply gaps for crucial medical supplies and equipment and staple food. For these and many more, the Philippines thanks all friendly nations. We will never forget your kindness and your timely support. Within ASEAN and beyond the Philippines, we will continue to work with partners to address global perils and ramp up cooperation to secure for our peoples greater peace, progress, and prosperity. The Filipino nation claims its rightful place in a community of sovereign states. Thus, we will continue to pursue an independent foreign policy. Let me be very clear about this. May I cut my prepared speech? Alam mo, I read a little over 3 weeks or last month na the Americans intends to go back to Subic. I'll just put on record my thoughts. I have nothing against America. I have nothing against China. But if you put bases here, you double the spectacle of a most destructive thing. Just like Manila during the Second World War, during the retaking of this city, it was one of the most devastated cities in the world. Ayang maglagay-lagay ka ng base at this time. This will ensure if war breaks out, because there would be atomic arsenals brought in. This will ensure the extinction of the Filipino race. We work without fail to protect our rights in the South China Sea, neither beholden nor a pawn to anyone. We broaden the boundaries of Philippine diplomacy. We build productive ties with everyone willing to engage us on the basis of equality and mutual respect. And we redefined our relationships with our most important partners, placing the country in a far better position to advance our interests in an evolving regional order and emerging global problems. Now, plenty of critics, both sides, claim about nothing has been done to retake forcefully or physically the South China Sea. Alam mo, unless we are prepared to go to war, I would suggest that we better just call off and treat this, I said, with the diplomatic endeavors. China is claiming it. We are claiming it. China has the arms. We do not have it. So, it's simple as that. They are in possession of the property. You remember the property, you're a lawyer, property rights. They are, it has nothing to do with the Philippine laws on property. But it's akin to, they are in possession. So what can we do? We have to go to war. And I cannot afford it. Maybe some other president can, but I cannot. Inutil ako dyan, sabihin ko sa inyo. And I'm willing to admit it. Talagang inutil ako dyan. Walang magawa. I cannot. The moment I sent my Marines there at the coastal shores of Palawan, tinamaan ng cruise missile lahat yan. Hindi pa nga sit sail yan eh. Sabog na. Let me see again that the victory in a global battle against COVID-19 would take longer than we expect. Everyone's cooperation is needed. I know that you have, the Filipino people, have sacrificed a lot, but we have no other choice but to work together and to do even more. I must admit that our actions have been far from perfect. Totoo yan. I admit it. And there could be improvements here and there. But all of us in government, including myself, assure you that we will not stop until we get things right and better for you. I know that many of you are worried not only about health and safety, but also about our ability to move around and ride public transportation. The depletion of your savings due to the rising cost of goods and the loss of your incomes due to uncertainties in your jobs and livelihood, I assure you that your government will address squarely these problems and challenges to overcome them and proceed to a new normal. Marami ho talagang mawawalaan ng those for a middle income. They buy a car on installment basis. You cannot keep up with the amortization. You lose it. You lose the car. And you are forced to ride on public utilities. Concomitantly, didiretso rin itong mga kriminal na rarami at crimes will increase. But let me assure you, for as long as I am president, there can never be a runaway crime in any of our cities. Hindi ako papayag na ganun. I can assure you, we will remain peaceful. Relatively peaceful. Hindi naman very peaceful. Pero kung sabihin mo na kagaya ng hold up dito, hold up, alam naman nila kung anong mangyari. You know what will happen to you. I am addressing myself to the criminals. You commit hold-ups, you commit rape, you commit all sorts of things, and you harm the public, then kaaway mo na ako. Pag bumalik kayo sa dati, kagaya noon, patong-patong na naman ang patay dito. Sigurado, hahanapin ko kayo. Do not ever go back to your old ways. Maghanap na lang kayo ng anong trabaho dyan. Magtiis kayo. To open up the economy to pre-COVID-19 levels at this time is not an option because whatever good it can produce will only be gobbled up or be outweighed by the bad it will generate sometimes. Haste makes waste. The recent upsurge of infection, when you open little windows of resumption of business, is proof of that. I am happy that I have talked to you today. You know, in other places, they opened up too early, too soon. America is one. China, well, fortunately, it was arrested on time. China and the rest, for those who open up, and those who do not follow the protocols of at least the World Health Organization, they are suffering. And they have at least 140 deaths. And America, kukulang sila lahat. No nation on earth was really prepared for COVID. No amount of preparation, because that kind of microbes visits about once every 100 years. Wala man yung mga tatay natin. What they suffered was Second World War. But tayo, we are not ready, and therefore we will not gamble with the lives and health of the people. Certainly no one would want to end up in the negative side of the equation. Not me, not us. All I ask is that you continue to put your faith in your government and work with us in achieving what is best for the country and our people. Together, let us do, mahirap basahin kasi dito, the most that we can to ensure that this health, safety, and well-being of every Filipino, especially those severely affected, are taken care of. Together, we shall fight this pandemic with the same fervor as our campaign against illegal drugs, criminality, insurgency, and corruption in high places, and entrenched parochial interests. As a government worker, I am addressing each and every Filipino that the government cannot do this without your help. More than ever, we need to reinvigorate the deep-seated Filipino spirit of pakisama and malasakit within each and every one of us. We are being tested as a people and as a nation. Worse times loom ahead. But I do hope that this spirit of solidarity and unity will serve as a drumbeat to which we shall march in unison in our quest for the light at the end of the tunnel. I appeal to each and every Filipino, let us take care of one another. Ito ang panahon para magtulungan, hindi panahon para maglamanan, mamang, dila ko. Hindi maglamang at pagkakaisa. My faith in the Filipino innate patience, resilience, and determination to bounce back is unwavering. Let us share our blessings with those who have little and those who have none. This is the time to bring out the best in us. The woes that weigh heavily on our shoulders may bend our back, but they shall not bend or break our spirit. From the rubbles of adversity, a more resilient and stronger nation, built on bayanihan and pagkakaisa, shall rise. Together, we shall overcome. Before I pardon the time, but it was really the allotted time for my speech, I would just like to give a statement between us sa gobyerno kung hindi tayo nakakaintindihan. You know, Drilon extended, he was defending. I would like to ask Drilon, were you a part of Accra when this contract of Ayala Water was being drafted? And why are you fumigating? Bakit kasi ikaw lang ang galit? Nasabi mo na dynasty. You are a hypocrite. You know that you cannot pass an anti-dynasty law. Ikaw nandyan sa Congress, ikaw ang mauna dito. But to take it against me for protecting my country is something which I really resent. Alam mo, you describe using the dictionary the synonym ng mga oligarchy, kung ano. Then you proceeded to characterize everyone, every name, and then said that oligarchy is not bad at all, because not all oligarchies are bad. True, but ito, to my countrymen, the oligarchy that exists in this country is the oligarchy that existed during the Spanish time. And the Spanish lands and the friar lands and all the benefits that were passed on to the insulares who did not go back to Spain or to the Spaniards and into their... But that was long ago. It has been forgotten. This is the oligarchy that controls the Philippines by what? By taking control of the water and the electricity and power. Yan ang oligarchy mo, Drilon. Wala nang oligarchy dito except that they have control. Look at how can you now craft a new contract? Because I would insist that you pay the billions and billions that you collected. For example, water treatment. Oh, nandyan sa kontrata. It's in the billing. They've been collected. Since 1997. Ilang bilyon na nga wala ni isa. Not even a faucet was built for a water treatment facility. Yan ang mahirap sa... You do not protect the oligarchs here. You are the one. Ikaw lang mag-isa. And I suspect that you were also the one or help when you were there in the Accra. We do not even know ang mga abogado sa public documents. Hindi nga alam. Hindi natin alam kung nakagraduate ba o hindi. Wala. Would you think Ayala would get the services of those? Ayala got Accra. Accra did it. Ikaw galing ka doon. Most of you, more successful lawyers sa corporation. You handle big corporate. Yan ang mahirap. O, bangga tayo dito. Hinawakan ninyo eh. Hindi ka pwede kayo. Kita mo, noong nag-increase, walang tubig, pinuputol yung tubig. Ang tao, bumigay kasi hindi pwede yung tayo hindi maligo. Hindi uminom. Electricity, ayaw mo mag-increase. O ayan, wala ka. Palaging brown out lahat. I'm sorry, but I have to say this to you. I do not like it. It's not the time for it. But since it is the time for the Sona, for people to know and people to really get the facts, then, and the right of the people to be heard. Tayo na naman ang tao magsabi. hinawakan ninyo yung tubig, pati electricity. Yun ang oligarchy. Kaya ako sinabi ko noong kumpanya, corruption is not here. Yung mga customs, maliit yan. It's there upstairs. And I was really unprovidential. Dumating yung panahon na hindi ko hiningi. Then I saw the contract. Nung nakita ko yung contract na, tsaka yung linya na yung choice, yung linya ng it belongs to government. The best of the transmission lines, whatever, government gets it first before anybody else. Thank you. I am true.
On the part of the Senate, the joint session is adjourned.
On the part of the House of Representatives, the joint session is adjourned.
Ayan mga kaibigan, ang pagsasalita ni Pangulong Rodrigo Duterte sa kanyang State of the Nation Address kaninang hapon. Ito mga kaibigan ay kanyang ibinahagi ang mga pangunahing mga programa ng pamahalaan, gayon din sa kanilang sasabi na sa kanyang pagsasabi na ang bansang Pilipinas raw ay kayang labanan itong COVID-19 pandemic. Gayon din kanyang binanggit kanina na ito raw si Senator Franklin Drilon ay di umano ay sumusuporta sa oligarkiya. Inaalam pa ang pagpapahayag rito ni Pangulong ni Franklin Drilon, ni Senator Franklin Drilon, hinggil na dito sa binabanggit ni Pangulong Rodrigo Duterte. Yan mga kaibigan, ang ating inihatid sa inyo ngayon hinggil sa 2020 Sona ni Pangulong Rodrigo Duterte, courtesy ng RTV Malacanang. Maraming salamat at magandang